Call to order the St. Joseph City Council of November 1st. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, let's get back here. Item 2, public comments. Anybody wishing to address the council, step forward and name and address. Podium. Ha!
Hi, Tim Rocky, 619 Hackberry Drive. Here representing the Parks Board, looking for a waiver on a park rental fee for the Millstream Pavilion for a fundraiser that is held annually, the Ice Bowl tournament. That fundraises for Pathways for Youth and the St. Joe Food Shelf. It's been an ongoing event for 26 years now. There's been some recent changes to the fee structure, and I can give some additional background.
Sure.
We have worked the Parks Board with the St. Cloud Disc Golf Club and gotten some of their members to host a youth program this last summer, and in doing so, the agreement was to waive the rental fee for hosting that youth program here in the community. It's very typical to a lot of other agreements in other cities that unfortunately was not brought to the city council here where the fees are discussed. So that was an error on our part. So I'm here to ask about getting a waiver of the rental fee for the Ice Bowl fundraiser for this coming January, and then potentially for a reoccurring waiver for that event.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Anybody else wishing to speak? Yeah, you guys are coming up later. Item 3, approve the agenda. Motion and second, approving the agenda. Any issues or concerns, additions? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails. Item 4, consent agenda.
So moved. Second?
Motion and second on the consent agenda. Any issues or concerns with that? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5, main server replacement.
Yes, so our main server is 7 years old, was purchased in 2014, and the life expectancy on those is usually typically anywhere from 6 to 7. So we're at a point where we're due for replacement. We have experienced performance issues, and as in technology improves and we have more data needs, we're at that point where we need to replace that. We have a contract with Shift Technologies that we've had for a number of years. David Zimmer is here this evening to answer any questions that you may have, and also present the proposal which was included in your packet. We have been setting aside money for the replacement of the server. We currently have $47,178 allocated for that. And then the next equipment certificate will not be issued until 2023. Staff, Lori and I have been looking at this, and we're actually recommending that we keep those reserves for future computer IT needs, and actually use ARPA money, which is the American Rescue Plan Act funds. We're able to do that, which would take up about 12% of those ARPA funds. This is a high priority need. We also will bring at your next workshop other options for use of those ARPA dollars. So for your consideration tonight is approval of the purchase of a server from Shift Technologies as proposed in the estimate that was included in your packet for just over $95,000. David, I don't know if you want to go up to the podium and
Get grilled.
yeah, there you have it.
I also brought Ryan with just just,
Yes.
it's because Brian is more familiar with, you know, he's worked with you guys out here already, so I will walk over here.
Because they're good, that's where the camera and the beams are aimed.
Thank you. I also brought Ryan with as well, as he's more familiar with the city. And I don't do a whole lot of work out here with this city, more with other cities. So anyways, with the proposal, as many of you know, Larry is no longer one of the owners, but still is employed with the company. And he's the one that actually put this proposal together. With this proposal, we came up with similar to what you have already with 2 servers. And both those servers are redundant, so if one of those servers does go down, the other one is able to perform as the original one. They are identical. With that, on this proposal, it's 2 HP ProLiant DL380 servers. And with that, he also has a CyberPower UPS for each one of those. VMware vSphere Essentials is the actual operating system that is a hypervisor that allows for multiple servers to run on that. And that one software will run on both those servers. It's licensed for 3. 36 Windows Server standard cores is what's needed. That's the Windows operating system, and the server cals are the client access licenses, and he has 49 of those down. There's also SQL Server that that would need to be installed. That is needed for your Laserfish software. 49 licenses for that. I apologize, I should have brought my glasses. Remote desktop, 10 remote desktop licenses as well. And Acronis software to back up the servers and also to replicate. And what's he got here? 1 switch, an HP switch, and then cables, and 120 hours is estimated for the installation. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Ryan?
Only that the HP switch is a 10 gigabit switch, so it's an upgrade over what you currently have for faster data transfers.
Does the server reside here? Where does the server reside? Here?
The server resides here.
In the rack here?
Actually, it's
Back there? Okay.
Yep.
And are these equivalent licenses to what we have today?
Yes.
A 1-to-1 match, kind of? We have-
Yes, with a few adjustments for extra users and new versions and such.
49 SQL Server licenses? Is that because we have so many people on Laserfish?
Yep.
Is that really the truth? 49 is an awful lot of licensing for,
We probably have low 30s today.
no kidding. Are these concurrent license or
Yes.
they're all side by side?
Yep.
We don't have 30 side by side users, do we? Like all
Not
logged
at
on
the
at the
same
same time?
time. Mm-mm.
I mean, that's, 49 is like we have to have 49 to 50 people all logged on at the same time on Laserfish.
How does that work if the public is accessing from our website?
It's still a license, right?
It's like one license
One
for
checkout.
anybody that, from accessing from our website?
That I don't know. That would be a good question for OPG3. I can talk to them about it. Also Microsoft, but as far as the licensing on that, so I can check on that.
I mean, it just seems like an awful lot of licenses for a piece of software I don't like anyway. So, what, can you just say, what's wrong with the server now? Not that it's just old, what's failing on it? Is it out of disk, out of memory, out of
It
too
is
slow?
a combination of all three. So it's the age that it is. It's outdated, which leads to slowness. Running out of expandable storage space. There is still some, but you're running up against the ceiling, and we've already had to add more memory to the physical machine,
Okay.
and running out of room for that as well.
And I asked Teresa, you probably know more than she, but no offense intended. But what's being stored? How much, it says like a terabyte of data. What are we storing? Is it all Laserfish stuff?
It's all Laserfish stuff, any files, documents,
And so that's like, what, 20 years worth of Laserfish stuff, or?
The Banyan data system, our finance system.
I was just gonna say,
Which one
most of
is
it's probably Laserfish based on the number of stuff we scan in. And I'm wondering, is there a better storage mechanism than hard drive or expanded memory, like a better retrieval system for some of the older stuff? I mean, if we go, I don't know, but,
You're talking like archiving it?
yeah. Cause, I don't know how pertinent our Laserfish is that's 10 years old. I mean, it might be, but then there might be a better retrieval system as well. I'm just trying to save space so that we don't have to, Laserfish is never disappearing unless we start archiving some of it. And so that's gonna just eat the memory as we go forward. So maybe that's, again, a tech kind of, are we ever gonna get rid of anything, kind of question.
I'm gonna say probably not. With the hard drives growing as they are, so every time you're getting a new server, you're getting larger and larger hard drives, correct?
Right.
So with that old stuff is probably not ever gonna be taken off of that unless you find a new software package that replaces Laserfish. But as far as that data that's on there, as the hard drives get bigger and bigger and bigger, that data, it takes up less and less percentage of that hard drive. So I would say you'll probably never go away from it until you go with a new software package that replaces Laserfish. And then I've done this over at Foley, where they went from an older, for the police records over there. And what we did is they still have that old stuff for archive, but they're continuing to move on to the new platform for all the new stuff. So there's nothing that changes on the old stuff. It's nothing more than a server that is there. They have to keep it there for X amount of years
Yeah.
until it's no longer needed to look up records. So
Okay.
Do you have a normal cycle for replacement, or it's just until we have, does this city have a normal, like every 3 years, every 5 years?
6 to 7 typically
So
on
it
the
is.
server,
Okay,
which is kind of common as, it's probably been about 5 to 6 years too that we're rotating individual computers.
okay.
yeah. So as far, some people have held on to servers longer than that. You're starting to cross your fingers at that point, and you're hoping that nothing happens. So if something major would happen, we gotta come in, we gotta repair what's already broken to try to get that up and running, and then we go through the process of migrating that to a new server. So you're adding time on top of what it would take to replace it. So, typically when they start to get to a certain age, you start to worry about them. And at that point, it's time to talk about replacement. If it's not in the budget, you talk about, all right, how about for next year? Let's take care of this before it becomes a major issue. So,
And this, oh,
Go ahead.
and this 120 service, that's just for the installation and being able to transfer everything from the old to the new?
there's actually six servers on this virtual server.
There is, okay.
So with that, that's where the time comes in, as far as each one of those servers has to be set up. Each one of those, you have to migrate the data over. So it's not just one server that we're bringing in. It's one physical server at one location and one physical at the other. But as far as the migration portion of that, there are 6 virtuals that you have to deal with to get all that stuff taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
Back in the old days, you would have had 6 physical servers for each one of those, so.
The last question I have is, hardware could take up to 6 months to receive. What will it take to limp us along here? Or, it's an urgent matter, but I'm guessing we have some things that are failing now or not working. So,
I guess
I know it's speculation, but
yeah,
how bad is it?
I guess I wouldn't necessarily say it's failing. You're not in imminent threat of losing your server.
Okay.
But there is room to expand the storage with extra hard drives. We can throw, I believe, at least 2 in each server to expand the storage. Memory-wise, there's a few bays left open that we can expand the memory for each virtual machine to perform better.
I guess what I'm asking is whatever life-saving techniques you can use so we don't lose what we have in the meantime before we get new hardware. I don't know what that is, but I mean, that's kind of your discretion, but I want to make sure we're not to a point where we start failing stuff, okay?
Yeah.
So, do you need a motion to approve this?
I got
We
one.
do.
I got
Oh,
one.
sorry, Bob.
What's the downtime for migrating all the data from, point A to point B? Or is it an ongoing process that doesn't really interrupt the system?
Typically, it's not very much as far as, the employees here. Most of it's done, we'll do most of it during regular hours. And it gets to a point where, all right, we have to do a cutover. So at that cutover, a lot of times we'll do that after hours. So as far as downtime, I've had it where people haven't had any downtime. When you do make the change, I always show up at the place to make sure that everything is up and running, meaning, you're gonna have hiccups with, possibly something that you just didn't foresee. So a path that's not set up right.
You're not
or
talking
something.
about, a day or 2 down and stuff
No,
like that?
probably
Maybe
not.
hour here, hour there, or whatever.
That'd be more like it, most likely, like you say, we probably do it after hours and then show up Monday and they say, all right, most of it works except for, one software doesn't work or whatever, but
Okay.
yes.
Any other questions? Go, Kevin?
So gentlemen, you work with several municipalities in the area. Is there an interest or a movement towards taking some of this older data and putting it in the cloud instead of having it on physical servers?
I have not had any inquiries into that with the.
Well, if we were to inquire about having some of this information that's maybe 10 years or older in the cloud and not on physical servers, is there an avenue for that, or is that just not something done in local
I-
government?
Don't see the benefit of doing that, I guess. Like you say, if you're gonna put a server in-house, put enough storage space in to handle what you need instead, otherwise somebody's gonna have to manage and take that stuff off this server, move it to the cloud, and then you'd be paying for cloud storage on top of it. A server out there probably for that as well. So if you needed another Laserfish server in the cloud for that, then you'd be paying for that service as well. So I don't see really any efficiency as far as going that way.
I don't think the security is all that great in the cloud either, is it?
Well,
Yeah, I'd say it is.
The world is moving to the cloud.
That doesn't mean it's good.
We did have a little bit of, a company, did have some issues with that just recently that we had to take a part of. So as far as helping out with, and the client that was going through that is decided not to go cloud. So, everything, all their information was encrypted and they were down for days.
I
And
think
then-
it's more for, my opinion would be more for individual, for businesses. If that were to go down, the staff would literally be at the beck and call of whenever that cloud was going to. That would be my only worry, is that if it went down, Lori or anybody would not be able to get at that information until you could get somebody in where these guys are immediate.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just was curious about the topic. And then, have any of your clients had the ransomware scenario pop up yet. And without getting into details or taking a lot of time, how do you find out and how do you address it? And did someone have to pay money, or give us kind of an overview? Because that's one thing that if there's something that I lay awake at night about, it's things that could happen to a city like a ransomware attack.
Did you watch the 60 Minutes episode that had that, maybe a couple, you did see that? So anyways, we did have a few businesses that did get hit with that. One was, a company that, I had just started to go over there and help them out with their stuff, and I gave them a recommendation for backup software. I said, I don't think this is anywhere near good enough for what you guys have here. And they said, all right, and we gave them a proposal. They didn't go with it right away. And then they gave me a phone call and said, we have ransomware. The previous company is working on it. I said, okay, all right, well, let me know. They called back and said they could not retrieve anything from the tapes. That was back in the tape days. And I said, okay, I'll take a look. I looked, and none of their information was there. So they did have to make a phone or send off the crypto, and they did get their information. Luckily, they got the key and they got all their information back. Of course, they signed off on that quote to get that new software put in. They were hit again, and second time round, we went through, restored all the information in a matter of, I don't know, maybe a couple hours or something like that, and they had all their information back. So a few things to take care of, prior to that is don't give anybody access to anything they don't need. So even if you're not concerned about, let's say I'm not concerned about Ryan getting into my stuff, lock him out of my stuff. If he never has to go in there, don't give him rights, because if he gets ransomware on there, it will infect and encrypt all the files that he has access to. So, limit it to who needs what, and that's it. Yeah. So one thing, and then also backups. Backups as often as you can, and what he's got out here right now is hourly, right?
Yes, hourly backups.
Is-
Locally here.
Well, talking about that ransomware then, so doesn't this go whether cloud or server, isn't it the firewall and the protection and security that you have there also, not just not giving out your information? So what do we have as a city as protection and security then?
So even with a firewall, if somebody, let's say gets an email or goes out and grabs a file, that firewall may not be able to look into that file to see if there's any ransomware within that file. So they could get that file, then open that file, and then it's inside the building, and then it can go out and hit your servers and start encrypting and everything on their
So what do we
workstation.
have then as a city to protect us from that?
You have Sentinel-1 for, antivirus, anti-malware, anti-ransomware stuff.
We
for-
do,
Yeah, you do.
okay.
But that's on all systems and servers.
Motion?
So move to Ward Shift Technologies contract to replace the main servers.
Second.
Motion and second to replace the server. And again, fiscal budget's 95,119,69 from ARPA funds. Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Any other questions?
None.
No, thank you.
You're good. Item 6, we have a visitor.
Yes, good evening, mayors and council. So we have the pleasure of having Molly Stewart here this evening. She is the consultant from SRF who is spearheading the Beltline project study. So she will be providing an overview of some of the feedback that they've heard so far and then some of the next steps for the project.
So the presentation in your packet doesn't include these two, they're hot off the presses, so if you guys want to see what they're neat. And then I do have large plots of the layout that's in there, if you'd like those
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
Pass those down too. How do I get the do they see the presentation or?
Kaylee, did you start it?
There you go.
There you go. Bingo.
All right. Thank you. My name is Molly Stewart. I'm with SRF Consulting Group. I'm here to give you an update on the Southwest Beltline Corridor Study. A little info about what I'm going to talk about. We'll go through the study goals and objectives, purpose and need, schedule, public input opportunity 1, alignment alternatives and evaluation, cross-section alternatives and the evaluation, our second public input opportunity, and finally next steps. And I'll try to keep it under 10 minutes like I've been coached, so.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. So just, I did have the pleasure of speaking with some of you back in June, so just a little recap. The study goals and objectives are to identify a purpose and need and benefits of the Southwest Beltline Corridor, evaluate potential alignment alternatives, cross-sections, and traffic control needs, and then build support and policies to set the stage for future potential construction. A little bit about the purpose and need. The Beltline Corridor has been studied for more than 30 years now. It was most recently identified in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. The purpose is to improve mobility between Highway 15 and County Road 75 while supporting development opportunities and multimodal initiatives. And the entire Beltline Corridor, which is identified on this map here in purple, would improve roadway capacity and reduce system delay by approximately 33% by the year 2045. So our study is currently at the end of the second phase. We just completed our second round of public input. And the next steps include developing adoption and preservation policies and funding strategies, and then a final study document which will be available on our website for public review and comment later this year. And finally, we anticipate the study wrapping up by the end of this year. So our first public input opportunity was held in the summer of 2021. It included a narrated presentation and community survey. We had a total of 243 people respond to our community survey. Some of the things we learned was that there is strong support for mobility as a primary purpose of the Southwest Beltline Corridor. Majority would like to see improvements as soon as possible, and there was desire to construct the segment between Highway 15 and 23, or to prioritize that construction. We also learned that the potential environmental impacts should be reduced at all costs. There was consensus that the corridor would help alleviate traffic congestion on adjacent roadways. And the cost of construction should be evaluated so that taxpayer money could be minimized as well. And finally, there's strong support for a raised median and pedestrian amenities. We also met with, held a series of focus group meetings in August of 2021. This consisted mostly of large tract property owners, businesses, and other key stakeholders. There were 17 people that attended this focus group meeting, and we held both a virtual and an in-person option. Some things we learned from this focus group meeting were there was concern about having to donate land or right-of-way as part of the Southwest Beltline development process. And there was a strong desire to minimize environmental impacts during construction. So following this focus group meeting, we then took feedback and were able to modify some of the alignments to kind of minimize impacts to adjacent, to businesses, mostly in the north area of the corridor. So, alignment alternatives. The study team first started with taking the alignments that were developed during the 2008 environmental scoping document that was completed. We updated these then to reflect current conditions and technical analysis and input from our project management team. We then, as I mentioned, presented these to the focus group meeting and took input from that and refined them again. And finally, the alignments that are shown here then are the ones that we presented at that focus group meeting. So they primarily consist of three different alternatives: a western, central, and eastern alignment, shown by the red, blue, and green lines on the map. And then we also developed a couple of sub-alternatives shown by the dashed lines on here. So then we took these alignments and completed a technical evaluation. The criteria that we used to evaluate included transportation, property and land use, environmental, economic considerations, and multimodal considerations. Some criteria included in these larger categories include things such as travel time reliability, impacts to wetlands, and construction costs, to name a few. We also evaluated the different alignment alternatives. We broke them down into 3 different segments, so those are also highlighted on this map. The first segment is that area north of County Road 75. The middle segment is between 75 and Highway 23, and then the third segment is Highway 23 to Highway 15. So the results of the technical analysis in the north segment show that A2, B2 alignment alternative, which is that blue and red dash line on the slide here, was the one that really was showing us to be most favorable and highest ranking. It's the shortest distance and therefore the lowest cost, and also really had the least amount of impacts to the adjacent businesses and residential properties. In the middle segment, there wasn't really a clear winner. As you can see, the results are kind of very similar across the different alternatives. We did present in the second round of public input an opportunity for the public to weigh in and vote for their preferred. So that's really going to we'll be taking into account now to determine which kind of is the better alignment in this middle area. And I'll go over those results in a little bit here. And finally, the south segment, the A2 and C alignment alternatives were really the ones that kind of rose to the top. They're both similar as in the southern area by Highway 15, as they both have the same connection points, and then they kind of differ from there at different connection points on Highway 23, either at Belle Claire Drive or 36th Avenue South. And again, our public input opportunity number 2 included an option for the public to weigh in on which crossing locations they would prefer. So, to summarize, as a whole, the top ranking alternatives that rose to the top with the highest scores were the A2 alignment alternative and a hybrid alignment alternative, which is shown as the purple line on here, and then the A2 one is the solid red line on here. I'm sorry, the red dash line on here. Those two were very similar in scores and were a step higher than the rest of them. So. In addition to the alignment alternatives, we also evaluate different cross-section alternatives. The 3 that we really considered, I should step back. So the Southwest Beltline corridor is projected to accommodate 11,900 to 13,600 vehicles per day by the year 2045. So that really kind of drives at a 2-lane roadway. However, there is desire to preserve a right-of-way for a 4-lane facility, so which would be about 150 feet of right-of-way. So that's what will likely end up being preserved. So that's why on this slide there's 2-lane roadways shown. So that will be likely what would be constructed initially, and then with the expansion option in the future potentially if warranted. So the 3 different cross-section alternatives we considered were 2-lane undivided with ditches, which is really kind of that rural section. 2-lane divided with curb and gutter, which is an urban section, and then a hybrid of these two, which is a 2-lane divided with a divided median and ditches on either side. We evaluated each of these cross sections based on different criteria such as cost, safety, conflict points, constructability or expandability in the future, and multimodal comfort. And as you can see, the second alternative, which is that hybrid alternative with the divided median and ditches on either side, is the one that really kind of rose to the top. So as I mentioned, we just concluded our second round of public input opportunity. And with that, we gave the public an opportunity to weigh in on which alignment alternative they preferred. So there was the option of the solid red on the map, which is that A2 alternative, and then the purple dash, which is that hybrid alternative. So we had over 100 responses on our survey, plus we also had an interactive comment mat where folks could just kind of put comments and opinions on the different alignments also. And we had a little over 50 responses on that. So the results show that that red alignment, the solid line on here, was the one that was really most favored by the public. So in addition, we had some open-ended comments received as well. Some things, key takeaways were there was concern with public or potential environmental impacts. The purple line would be more impactful to property owners, so, and the red line, the public thought was more direct. There's concern over the expense to the taxpayer, and consideration of grade separation at Highway 23 should be a part of the conversation as well. We also brought these alignments and the evaluation results back to the focus group meeting that we met with in the summer. This was held in October and again included a virtual and an in-person option. We had about 19 attendees at this, including mostly large tract property owners, businesses, and other key stakeholders. Some things we learned from this were property owners and businesses would like to see transparency and continued engagement as part of the process as it continues. There was concern over potential or assessments and property value decreases as the process moves forward. And finally, there was, again, concern about having to donate land or right away as part of the Southwest Beltline development process. All right, so finally, next steps. As I mentioned, we'll be developing adoption and preservation policies, and then identifying different funding strategies. I've kind of highlighted a few on the slide here. So looking at different grant opportunities that might make sense for this Beltline corridor, you know, potentially considering improvement or using capital improvement program funds, tapping into the county wheelage tax or local option sales tax, or maybe even considering a public-private partnership. So as part of the final document, we'll lay out different strategies that could be harnessed in the future as the process continues. And then finally, a final study report to document all this technical information and public input, which will be available on our study website for public review later this year. So with that, I will turn it over to any questions from the group.
Okay, so the preferred alignment cuts our industrial parks like in half.
Yes. Yep, and you're talking in the north area,
Yeah.
correct? Yep. Yep, and so during the focus group meeting, we had CLC partners involved.
Okay.
And so they had input, and the general takeaway was that the prioritization of construction would likely be the south moving up, and that segment, technically our study really is between Highway 75, or County Road 75 and Highway 15. We just included that segment to County Road 133 to kind of be aware of what could happen. And so, not saying that it couldn't happen, but you know, the corridor could be constructed in phases all the way up into that point, and then it could, you know, end up functioning where you're using existing 75 to County Road 133, or it goes up to the north on there's an existing road that's there today too. I think there's the other thing is that, you know, the Beltline corridor is meant to be a planning resource to identify where this road should go and be developed then as a development occurs. So it's not meant to be just constructed now, and but just as you know, there needs to be some sort of roadway system out there as development comes in. You know, a lot of the properties that it's going through in the south of 75 are a lot of farmland and large tract property owners, and you know, as they turn over their, you know, sell to developers or develop their parcels, you know, identifying where a roadway can go is really the goal here. And so that's the point in the north area as well. So the business park is we understand to be there, but there should be some road, you know, and this is kind of just trying to navigate that's what we'd like to see.
Yeah,
there,
I understand the goal. So part of the south between 75 and 23 is a historical farm that's unlike the Minnesota, and I'm pretty sure you were never gonna get a road through there.
Yeah, are you talking?
Rassier. Isn't Rassier the 100-year farm?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I don't know that that's a really preferred alignment if it's, we can't go there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just part of the, again, the future development of, you know, the road to the north has kind of already been laid out, is that it,
Yep.
you know, that it connects there, and it won't, you know, wouldn't go anywhere unless, you know, Dan decides to sell, you're talking
Yep.
about Dan's
Yep.
property, yep. And he was also engaged as part of the focus group,
Yeah,
and expressed concerns.
I'll bet he was engaged.
And
No
I-
comment.
And I can appreciate that, I mean, it's challenging to see, but
What-
it's more or less to note that, you know, it won't happen until he decides to sell or to develop, and maybe if it never happens, then the road never gets connected there, but that's kind of the point of, you know, is a long-term planning preservation policy to note that when people decide, or when landowners decide to develop, which is happening more in the southeast segment, which is why that segment is kind of prioritized, is,
But if we have developers that want to access this road and we can't build there, wouldn't we want to change the alignment like now?
well, I think that would, you know. that's-
Versus developing on either side and then getting to a dead end
Yep.
and, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a planner, I'm not.
Well, I think the details of the environmental historic property, we didn't go into that level of detail as part of this planning study. That would be included as part of like
Next.
the environmental
Okay.
next step. And a detailed evaluation and alternative analysis will again happen as part of that. The goal with this study was really trying to like set the stage for a smoother sailing of, you know, at minimizing the effort that would take for that. So that's, you know, would be explored as,
Was,
future phases.
was the road coming from the other side of St. Joe, 94-2 and up that way, or is that going too far? Because the existing roads are already there. I don't know now coming up and over.
So a
Well-
corridor on the other, like the
On the
western side?
other, yes,
Yeah.
more.
No, it was the identification that was, as part of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, really identified this corridor in between the 94 highway.
So it was never
You know,
entertained?
I'm not sure where Field Street came into the bypass as it connects to this.
Okay.
We'd have to go back and look at documents, but that was meant to bypass city into the next corridor over, which would have been the Beltway, so.
Okay.
And this corridor is really meant to serve like a local mobility purpose, not necessarily as like a 94 comparable, like bypass type. It's meant to be like a 2-lane roadway to get access to the adjacent parcels, and just a reliever to already congested corridors of trying to get to St. Cloud and
Yep.
between St. Joe and Wake Park.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it. The 33rd southeast side of this is really waiting, champing at the bit to try and get some definition. I mean, I don't know that we are, but at the same time, I want to make sure that splitting our industrial part and/or where we might have a track spur would be detrimental to any growth up there.
Yeah, so we're not gonna be splitting the industrial park. You know, really what we're looking at is the utilization of either the future 24th Avenue that comes up through there, or the road to the west.
Sure.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. Questions, counselors? Looks good.
Thank you.
Has the APO seen this already?
Yes.
All right.
Yep, I got Brian's name up there, so.
Who's that?
Frank
Just
Gibson,
kidding.
yeah, right? Yeah, no, we are planning to meet with our project management team, which includes representatives, Nate's on there, and then, Randy and Wake Park and St. Cloud, MnDOT, Stearns County, and the APO again, so we'll
Sure.
bring this back to them too, and the feedback received today.
Okay.
All right, I
Thanks,
appreciate it,
Molly.
thank you so much.
Molly. Very good. Where are we? Sorry. 7, item 7. Disc golf.
Yeah, so Timothy Rocky spoke earlier in regards to his request on behalf of the St. Cloud Disc Golf Club for their disc ice bowl event that they hold in January in St. Joseph at Millstream Park. And they've held that event for a number of years now. The city had not charged for the event in the past, but in 2014, the city council adopted a disc golf tournament fee along with requiring insurance of certificate of liability. So our staff had the request to reserve for the annual event. In 2020, it was not held due to COVID-19. And essentially those fees were shared with the organizer And tonight, for consideration, is a waiver of those fees. So annually, you review your fee schedule for the next year. So in November here, we will actually bring the 2022 fee schedule for you, which again, you adopt that every year. And that's where this is addressed, those shelter fees. So essentially, I laid out in the memo what we charge. For example, the disc golf tournament would be $150, and if they want the shelter with that, so that's for the course, it would cover that, so it would be $150 total, and then the damage deposit, which is returned, assuming there's no extra cleanup and damage that we have to take care of. So the purpose of the fee is to help cover our costs. Truthfully, that doesn't even cover our costs, to be very frank. But it's supposed to cover things like, shelter cleaning, removing garbage, putting signage up, things of that nature. So again, before you this evening is a request to waive that fee, and also the insurance requirement. I did reach out to the area cities, Sartell, Sauk Rapids, Way Park, St. Cloud, and Augusta, and I did hear back from Sartell, Way Park, and Sauk Rapids. They also charge these fees. These are not uncommon.
Sure.
They, charge for fundraising, for-profit, nonprofit. So we are consistent with those area cities.
Go.
Since 2014 then, we have waived for this group, is that what you're saying?
So in 2014, the council actually adopted a part of the fee schedule to charge for this event. However,
But has this
staff,
particular group?
yeah, it was meant for this event, but however, previous staff, when we look back at records, it appeared they did not charge for it. So I did want to share that with the council. Our current staff obviously is following what the council has adopted in the fee schedule, as we should.
So since 2014, we've waived that for them, even though we have put that into place. Am I correct in hearing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Bob, why did we put that in 2014?
Well, let me think.
Was there damage in it?
Just like yesterday.
Well, I know, but I can't remember why we did that. I was here, but I
Well,
mean,
my
was
question
there damage at
is,
one
you
time or
know,
something?
Bring
Cleanup?
up the current date, but what's our risk or liability risk?
It'd be like damage more than anything else.
Well,
If-
no,
if
'cause
something
we
would-
we go in without requiring anything, where do we put our risk at? Let's say somebody gets a disc golf, lodge in their mouth and cuts their head off. I mean, I'm being facetious here. But, I mean, without that liability, does our insurance cover that? Or are we open to a straight-up lawsuit where it's, cash out of our pockets?
So I did reach out to Peter Oman in regards to our coverage. He said that we are covered if something were to happen. And I will say that it's not unusual for cities to require that. Sauk Rapids and Way Park do require the certificate of insurance as well. So we're not alone in that, but yet we are covered under our insurance.
So why would we want to double dip and require it?
I was here in 2014. I don't remember why we did this.
I don't understand.
I gotta believe there was some damage or something, or extra cleanup or something one
Or
year.
is it just everybody else coming up
Lori, do you
for a
remember?
waiver?
I don't recall exactly
Yeah.
either.
Something led us
The-
to this, though, like there was something post a tournament, even though there was a great, this has been a good tournament, and they do raise a lot of funds for the food shelf. Something happened in January of 2014, so we adopted it the following year, but I just don't remember what. And they're really a good group.
I don't know if it had to
Unless
do, like,
back
when
in
we were-
2014, we weren't covered.
Yeah.
That might be
Oh,
something
no, I
that was
think we'd always-
added or amended to the policy.
I think you didn't always use the shelter, from what I understand either, and we didn't build the new shelter till about 2016. So even on operating out of the old shelter, we didn't always open it for this event.
Really?
But I think, I don't know
Oh, no.
if we started using the shelter more for the event, for hot chocolate or whatever, for participants to come in. So maybe it got spelled out just because there was the shelter now attached to it. I don't recall myself.
Yeah, okay. Motion. Anybody, comments, Kevin?
Move to approve.
To approve what?
Approve the waiver?
The waiver, yeah.
Well, okay.
Did you have comments?
There's a motion, I'll second it, so we can get some comments. Motion and second. Comments or questions, Kevin?
So Tim, why do you need the waiver? If you're raising $8,000, why are you coming here? And why should we treat your group different from other nonprofit groups or organizations that want to use our public space?
Thank you.
$150.
So the communication that I got was $100 for the pavilion and $150 for the courses separate. I believe there was a miscommunication in that, but the was delivered to us as $250. The reason that I'm coming here requesting this is twofold. There are courses in the area that would not charge for this, and so the thought is this event only raises about 6 to 8 grand every year. Half the money goes to the food shelf and half goes to Pathways for Youth. With such a low revenue, if you give it every year, trying to protect those funds that they're going to the functions that we're designating them for. So if we were raising a lot more money, maybe $250 wouldn't be a big deal, but it is a decent percentage when you're only talking about 6 grand. So the second thing there, we as a club, the St. Cloud Club that works in a dozen different cities, puts on youth events, puts on leagues, and the agreement to those has always been just a verbal one, that waive a course reservation fee, and then club members would donate their time to host youth leagues. And it has worked out in many cities, including St. Cloud, which currently has a youth disc golf program in their summer bulletin as a result of it. So it's twofold, trying to reserve that money that people are donating to go to the uses that they're meant to, and second of all, to recognize the people that are donating their time to hold these youth programs.
And I get all that, so why should we treat your group different from other groups?
I wouldn't think that
Should
you
we
should.
waive
I would
all
think
of our
if-
fees for every single event at all of our public spaces?
Maybe for 100% nonprofits that donate directly back to the community, you should. Certainly, if somebody was hosting a tournament and wanting to raise money, you shouldn't waive that. But being that this is a complete nonprofit that goes directly back to the community, that's where I think you should.
We're talking about fees later on?
The next council meeting, I'll present the draft fee schedule, and then the workshop, we'll have a little more discussion.
Okay.
But just to clarify, it's only 150. You said 250. It would be 150.
The communication sent by this office to our club details out separate fees. I can forward a copy of that email if you'd like. Through further communication, I believe that you are correct and that the email was incorrect.
Right.
I can see what Kevin's getting at. We're setting precedents for,
Yeah, I know.
you know.
I mean, it's a small amount of money on both sides of the equation.
Yes, sir.
So if we don't waive, you're not gonna have the event here?
I can't speak for the person that's running the event. I would really like to keep the event here. I don't think it's a large expense for this city or this community. So that's why I'm here representing.
I understand your point, but we also have to think about what they had just raised, is that if we set a precedence of waiving, then we've got a lot of groups coming to our table asking for waiving, and then who takes care of that? We have to find that money to clean the space and to take care of that $100 or that $150. That's the only thing I'm, wavering, no pun intended, with it. So, I want you to stay, and to me, 150 to be able to, and I've been a part of nonprofits, so 150, I don't think is that big of a amount. So I'm,
You're vacillating?
Vacillating, wavering, good. Motion and second on the floor to waive the fees. Further questions?
And your commitment to our food shelf will be how much?
50%. We typically raise between $6,000 and $8,000 over the course of this event in the local community. It has raised $124,000 and change, 50% of which has gone to the St. Joe Food Shelf.
Thank you for that.
Thank
So
you.
It's
you're
commendable.
still paying the park rental.
So historically, we have always given the security deposit,
Yeah.
which I believe is at $200. 1 or 2 years that has been withheld due to cleanup or damage. But what we're asking here is the waiving of the rental fees. Certainly, we would still be placing a security deposit.
Well, my motion, I should have included it, but is the course rental and the damage deposit on the course. I assume that's how the fees are set up.
We usually collect 2 checks, one for the rental fee that's non-refundable, and then the damage deposit we hold until after the event. If there's no
Right.
damage, we return the deposit.
So, I mean, this would cost you, from what I'm trying to put forth, is this would cost you $100 to rent the shelter,
Yes,
and plus the $200 damage deposit, which is refundable.
yes.
Okay, that you're gonna pay, from what I'm reading here.
So
Or
there is confusion on the fee structure. I apologize. The, how I always understood it was $100 for the pavilion.
Yeah.
The email that the club received as part of this had $100 for the pavilion plus $100 rental fee for the course for $250 in rentals and $200 in security deposit. I do believe that that is incorrect through some conversations that we've had. But the email that I received was $100 for the pavilion rental, $150 for the course rental, and a $200 security deposit.
so they're just asking to waive the fee, not the insurance. So they still need to take care of the deposit, they still need to take care of the insurance, correct?
Can I ask a question on that? The insurance was brought up, it was included in the email, but then in subsequent conversations was decided as not required. So I'm still a little confused as direction from the office here as to whether insurance is required or not. I've gotten communications of both, the original communication that a liability insurance would be required, and then subsequent communication that liability insurance would not. So I don't actually, and the local club does not have any direction on insurance at this point.
Well, just from my previous question, we're covered, it's covered by our insurance, our umbrella. So the liability and the insurance is not on the table with this waiver that I'm thinking of proposing, or have proposed. The waiver that I'm
Let me-
proposing is just the course rental.
let me rephrase that for you if I could.
Okay, go ahead.
What Bob has just suggested is that we collect $100 fee for park shelter, $200 for damage deposit, and waive all the other fees.
Correct.
Does that sound right?
Say that again, I apologize. I
Which
just
all
want-
the other fees are basically.
Bob is suggesting park shelter rental only, a damage deposit of $200, and waiving everything else.
What's everything else?
$150
For the course rental.
for the course rental. And no insurance
Yeah,
required.
there was a confusion on insurance required and da-da-da.
Yeah, that's,
And we
So-
can, since we know it's coming at the next council meeting and work session, we can review our fees.
That's correct. May I interject?
Sure.
Mayor, Counselor. So just to clarify, yes, again, I clarified with our insurance broker, Peter Ullman, we are covered under our insurance, but we have it established in the fee schedule that the insurance, certificate of insurance is required, so that's why that was relayed to Timothy. So just to clarify that, if you're saying they don't need that, I would ask that be incorporated in that motion.
needs to be.
And that's the ask
Right.
that is in your packet, in the staff report.
Well, kind of, it says waive fee, and we're not
Right.
waiving all the fee.
Right.
Correct. So if you wanted to
Well,
Just to
adjust,
And that's why I
clarify,
said they,
yeah.
Bob is inferring that we charge park shelter rental, damage deposit, and waive all the other fees, including the insurance requirement, as stated there.
That sounds right.
Motion and second on exactly that. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
And then, can I add?
Oh,
Words
maybe.
With our next council work session though, can we do some research on the 2014?
Yeah.
Why,
we
what
did
was said, why, what, and where?
I'm serious.
Just refresh our memories.
I,
Then we can discuss at the work session with Lori, with the fees and all that schedule. We might wanna, get that off the books, cause it probably doesn't make sense.
well, and it could have been something like traffic and
Yeah.
police called out there or something, and they didn't, something like that.
Yeah,
Not
I'd
just,
like to, refresh my memory on why we did that at that time.
yeah. Item 8, the enterprise budget levy update.
So for tonight, I provided you the draft enterprise budget and capital equipment plan and a short where we're at with the levy. The budget is kind of a work in progress all year. We spent the summer looking more at the general fund and trying to narrow that down and determining what the preliminary levy needed to be, so that we can meet state statute and adopt those preliminary levies and budgets the end of September. I held off on providing the enterprise funds and the rates just because it kind of gets clouded then with the general fund. And we didn't have that tighter timeline of September 30th to adopt that budget. Plus, when it comes to like the sewer with the City of St. Cloud treatment facility, they're not usually ready for their enterprise budget and presentation to the area cities until, we have a meeting Wednesday to kind of go through what their budgeted amounts are and what they're proposing for the area cities to contribute to. So, because we don't have all those numbers, we don't have all that information, we kind of hold off on the enterprise funds until now to start reviewing. So, but first, I provided a little bit of an update on the levy. Your workshops and when we adopted the levy, some of your feedback from some of you is to see if we can do anything to reduce that tax rate from the preliminary levy. We did get the preliminary amount for the urban tax rate is at 62.811%, and that would be an increase of a little over 4%. I took a look at projects where we had things funded, considering, we have the ARPA money from grant available to us. Looking at prepaid assessments on like the 2021 street project, that came in a lot higher than what we anticipated. So I shifted some levy there because we have assessments that were prepaid to pay some of those debt funds currently. Also using some of that premium that we received from that project bond to help pay for next year's bond costs for the 2021 project. I also reviewed the Fund 390. I know we keep saying we got the Fund 390 to help offset some of those things. I looked at our capital plan, things that we have in progress with funding in 390 that I kind of keep bringing up. Welcome to St. Joseph Signs, for instance. where those are at, where those projects are at, as council has been deliberating some of those issues, what's coming up in the capital project and what we can use the Fund 394 to kind of help offset some of our 5-year capital plan. So taking into consideration all of those items, I was able to reduce the levy. Some I didn't get the dollar amount down, but the reductions that I made is an impact of the final levy being at about 60.61%. So you're looking at an increase of about 2%. And again, we have some significant debts that we're paying levies on, and so a lot of that increase is, really in the debt funds. So, and I tried to shift as much as I could and look at, prepaid assessments and things to kind of help offset that debt levy as best I could. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. We'll go through a little bit more in the workshop, but if you have any questions on that at this point, it's just kind of where I'm at today, looking at that, getting your feedback and comments.
Counselors, have you taken a look at the numbers?
Yeah, so I'm looking at 3 numbers here, 62%, 60%, and 58%.
Right.
So what you just said, you're down to the 58.671%?
That's
No.
where we were at for the 2021 levy.
The bold,
Oh, okay.
The bold one is the
bold.
one of where I'm at today, the 60.61%. So it's an increase of about 2% in the
Okay.
tax rate.
Okay, that's percent, that's not your tax capacity number.
That is the tax capacity that
With-
goes into
Okay,
the
well,
formula.
goes
Yeah,
into the
we're-
formula, yeah,
But that equates to 2% overall general levy.
yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay? Any other questions on that? Okay, then, in the enterprise budget, and I'll ask Ryan to chime in. It's kind of his department, so, but just to kind of reiterate, all the funds, we have union contracts and the compensation study, so non-union as well, all scheduled through 2022 on our pay structure, and that is showing a general increase of 2% come the first of the year, so that's been incorporated into the budget. The new position for the mechanic that we have scheduled hired next summer, some of their time is going into the enterprise funds as well, because they will be working on enterprise vehicles, sewer vac truck, just some of the pickups get allocated into the enterprise funds as well, because they do, and we got utility workers working in those funds. A lot of the operations is kind of similar, carried forward. There's a couple different initiatives that Ryan is implementing along with his staff. And so we tried to incorporate what those needs are, looking at chemical feeds that we might need in the water plant. We're under construction, expanding the permanganate, that's like the one chemical room in the plant 1.
Yep. Yeah, so that was part of the Plant 1 expansion, introducing the permanganate for to help control the manganese, which is the iron in the water.
Bob?
Yeah, just for future reference, I'll probably bring this question up down the road when it gets to the point of hiring this new position
It's me,
in the maintenance department. I know Ryan stayed at one time, and he saw the numbers, I never saw the numbers, but where it would basically be a positive by hiring a diesel mechanic versus what we farm out for on a yearly basis,
That is correct, so we wouldn't
Yes, I
have
would
all
like to
that
see something like
contracted
that. So
vehicle
I can
repair.
justify it and justify it to constituents that would pose the same question.
Yes.
Very true.
correct, yep.
Fair enough? Okay.
Very true. As I said, I'm meeting with St. Cloud. Myself and a couple other people, I think Teresa and Ryan are gonna be involved in that too. We're gonna listen to their proposal of what the budget numbers are looking like for the treatment plant. We're still looking at, Foley is still working on their connection into the city. They're working on a couple different funding sources yet, and so they're a little bit delayed. They thought they were gonna be able to move into design and getting closer to that construction phase by the spring of next year. It sounds like that's gonna be delayed a little bit, maybe to the fall, as they continue to secure their funding, but also where they're at just in the design phase of their project. Bob?
Is that the AR funding from them?
The what?
You know, we're getting a sizable amount of money from,
Oh, from that, they might use some of that, cause they can. But City of Foley, I mean, we're getting a total of about 800,000 and it goes by population, and since their population's smaller, it's a blip in their total cost.
okay.
But they likely will consider that, cause sewer projects are,
No, I'm
an okay
talking about
use.
the refund that we get for selling our capacity to them. You know, we don't have that in the bank yet,
nope,
and that might be held on because of their construction and everything.
sounds
else.
like it might be delayed, up to a year. So when I looked at the 2022 numbers, at least what's in the budget right now, I didn't make adjustments for that money quite yet, like on the
Okay.
debt service. I wanna make sure that we have it and which year I can apply that to.
Okay,
If it, you know, we still pay at the higher rate for 2022, that'll just mean that Foley has to rebate back to us a smaller, or, you know, that percentage in the future when they do connect, so. But I didn't wanna leave us short-sighted for 2022 if we have to continue operating and the cost will be the same as where they are at. So that's where I have that, but like I said, we have the meeting with St. Cloud on Wednesday, and maybe that's changed since the last update that I got on Foley, so.
and they have a sizable capital improvement project in their system.
Yeah.
And what part of that is ours?
Yeah. They always have a sizable improvement, so, I mean, they do give us what the project projections are coming up, and I do try to incorporate that into my rates on where those fall.
Okay,
So, hopefully we have fewer surprises. There was a time when we were surprised by
By
some
what?
of the things, but, they've been pretty open, and, we look at what that year is depending on what's going on in the system today, and so what their best estimate is for some of those projects. So I think like the expansion, when we met with them about a month ago, it looked like the expansion that they projected in 2030, we might be able to get by a couple years beyond that, but it's still gonna be on our radar because
Okay.
it's gonna be inevitable, sooner or later. We also incorporated planning documents. I know you've been, seems like about every other month, there's something new that Ryan's got, has to do with, requirements, Department of Health, Minnesota Pollution Control, from the federal level all the way on down. So we've been putting some seed money aside for planning across the board, you know, and planning as well. So hopefully, we're on track with no surprises there in the future as well. So, but I do have those incorporated into the 5-year capital plan, so. In the capital plan, I kind of broke down what's coming up in the projects in each of the utility funds. Everything is, well, we should go through a couple of them because there are a couple new items on there. One would be the cellular meter head, and this is something that Ryan and his staff have been looking at. This would make it a lot easier for reading meters for utility billing, but it also gives cellular access for each individual user to see where they're at within a day as to what their usage is on their water. So if they're concerned they might have a leak, how well a sprinkler system's running in the summer, they can monitor their usage on their phone and do some troubleshooting and identify where there's issues before they get a really high water bill from us. So it sounds like we also, the meter heads that we have currently on there in general in the city, the meters and the meter head that is the reader on the top, they were all installed between 2007 and 2008. We went through we used to be manual read, manual input into your readings into the utility billing system. So we went to this radio read so we can drive around with the computer and antenna, pick the readings up. The cellular data will give us a little better reception and eliminate the need to add very expensive antennas around the city. And it would also provide that real time for customers. So as we go forward, we're gonna change the meter heads to this system. The meters, if we have to replace a meter, are gonna be an updated version, ultrasonic?
Ultrasonic, yes.
Ultrasonic, you call it, which will also give us a little bit more life out of those meters and accuracy. So little better on the wear and tear as far as the mechanics in that as well. So, so that is a new initiative that, the utility department is proposing. Some of the other ones we've had on our, capital plan for a while, so I'm not gonna go through all of those. But, a new one that came up is the dog park lighting. The park board has been approached, I think, by several dog owners that, especially now when we get to the winter months of the year, it's pitch black out in there in the dog park. In the evenings, they still want to exercise their dogs when they come home from work, and it's getting very difficult. So Ryan came up with an option for that, and we can use streetlight utility funds for that option. So I don't know if you just kind of just have a light that we can connect to.
No, so, I put in a work order request with Excel, so they're gonna fix a regular street light out there on that power pole that's inside of the dog park, so.
Yeah, they were out digging around the other day.
Any questions on any of that, operations, capital, some of the directions that utility department's going? Bob?
Is there any way of going solar out there and making it, workable?
You know, the monthly cost for that street light, so the physical street light itself, there's zero cost involved, so it's virtually a free light. And the monthly charge on that, the electricity for that light is so minimal, I didn't even look at anything
Okay.
else.
I'm just, you you got both sides,
Right.
everyone's solar, so forth, so on. Just trying to appease the crowds,
Yeah, no, I hear you.
so. That's good, because I'm getting a new puppy. Watch out, it's a Rottweiler.
Going back to using the baseball field?
Yep.
I remember seeing you there.
That's next year's budget, lighting in the baseball field, right?
Anything, questions? Any other questions for Lori or anything?
I do have like where I'm at with the utility rates. I have some work on there, but I did put at least a summary of where I'm at today on those.
Okay,
Good.
good. Thanks, Lori. Item 9, construction manager.
Yeah, so as you recall, in September, you approved and released the RFP for construction manager for the community center. And we received 8 proposals to provide those services. I did share those proposals with you all, along with a score sheet, which is similar to how we reviewed the proposals that we received from the architect firms. And then from there, you guys had scored based on certain criteria that was identified. And we chose the top 4 to interview. So that's the point where we're at right now. You have the proposals, you have the criteria to score them on. So, that would be the intent for you to proceed with that. Where I want direction from and what staff is recommending, based on how you score those, I would like to have a committee, if you will, it would be Lori, myself, Greg Jake with the YMCA, and then HMA would be there as well. And then I would ask that 2 council members be a part of that to help talk about how you all scored those proposals and then narrow it down to the top 3, maybe 4, but preferably the top 3 for them to invite them to come in and present to the council as a whole.
So when do you want the scores back?
Would it be reasonable to have them, say, a week? I mean, is that a reasonable time frame?
Just for me. By Friday?
If you can do
Friday?
Friday, that's wonderful. I just, if you want a full week, let me know
Friday.
what you need. Okay,
So remind John, since he's not here.
I already made my decision, so, I'll just, propose one.
Okay. Way to score. All right. Anything else?
are you agreeable to, as far as when you score those, to having, like I said,
Well, yeah.
the next step, I would like to, if we can, to group with two of the council members, with Lori and I,
And we met with Greg and Murray or Kevin and I did, along with, who else was in there? You and Lori? Was there somebody else in there? That's a committee I would use, or that's a group I would use. And then from that pare down, we'll come back with presentations to the city.
I actually would like, since John and I are on the committee of the community, I'd kind of like to be in that. But since I'm kind of following it through in that way, I
Okay.
would be interested.
And again, as we pare them down, all those presentations will come back for the council to have a presentation.
So your little survey will narrow them down to 4.
Yep, 3.
Then out of them 4, the top 3 will come out of them 4?
Yeah,
Out
so,
of the
Out of the 8.
HMA and whoever else, the YMCA guy and the, you know,
2 staff
Right.
members, Greg from the YMCA, Murray Mack, Kevin and I.
so
That's what we
basically
do.
there's only gonna be 1 eliminated in this, secondary event.
No, there's 8 right now.
There's 8, it's gonna be dropped down to 4 with the survey.
Well,
three or 4.
Yeah, 4, I mean, you're saying 4, which is, you know, and then out of them 4, there's gonna be a top 3 out of them 4. So
Uh,
there'll be 1 eliminated.
Out of the top 4, we're gonna bring all those top 4 back and present to the city council.
So why are you having the secondary meeting then?
What's secondary meeting?
Are you talking about the short
Go over,
list?
you mean
Yeah.
go over the results?
The short list. Yeah, to go over the results. What's that gonna accomplish?
Well, we're gonna get some expertise to look at it, which we think Greg has gone through this before and so has Murray. We're gonna get their opinion versus just what we see, cause I'm not an expert on construction manager. We're gonna get their expertise and, you know,
So why are we taking the survey then? I'm just being the devil's advocate here.
Well, I think there's value in having the council still go through that process.
You know, well, we'll be going through that process on the end result. I was thinking that just the architect would pick out the top 4 or 5
Well,
firms.
The survey is to narrow it down, that's how I see it, and then, am I
Well,
understanding this right?
we're
Then-
doubling down on we're doing a lot of things 3, 4 times to get to the final results, you know.
How
Doesn't
I'm
need to be stepped on 7 times.
How I'm understanding it though is, we do the survey.
Well, we're taking
then
the
the
council,
group.
the council's surveying it all out, okay, they're scoring it all out. So, I mean, basically, we're scoring for nothing because it's up to another group to score the top 4. Whether or not, you know, I mean, Kevin will disagree with mine, or I'll disagree, you know, or Rick will disagree with, Kelly's, you know, and throw her top pick out. I mean, I'm just being, you know, hypothetical.
it's a
Yeah,
process, Bob.
just seems like a lot to go through
It
just
is,
for,
it is a lot to go through.
to narrow
And
down
we
for
still
4
want some,
candidates.
and we still want some expertise because nobody on this panel,
Well, yeah, I'm all for getting expertise in there, but,
Okay.
there's nobody on the council that's an expertise, so I would eliminate the council on the whole
so we'll be there
secondary
to,
steps.
so we'll be there to watch and listen along then.
So why did we choose you and Kevin for the 2 council?
Because you and John were already on the committee, the community center committee, and every time we'd have more to meet, we'd have to list it as a city council meeting. And we've met twice already.
But wouldn't we be the better person since we're in those meetings and we have a little bit fuller knowledge of that?
Yeah, and so am I. I mean, I've been longer than anybody here.
Okay. If I would
Broke
rather,
down too many times.
Item
and not
11.
Everybody gets the same information anymore.
Since Randy's not here, we're gonna move on to
It's all
item
broken
11.
down to
I would like to
2 get
finish that
this,
though, is
the rest
why
of
did
them
you
don't,
decide?
And I don't really care for that.
I know you
No,
don't.
I'd rather have it go right to the architect score people, and then put that short list, and then have the council and the architect there, and, you know, the whys nots and the why nots.
Okay.
But finish that answer is that shouldn't all of us agree to the 2 that is going forward? Who
Well-
chose the 2 of you?
We did about 6 months ago. When we were
Wasn't
meeting,
here 6 months ago.
what?
Who's we?
The council did. Well, I'm pretty sure that when we were meeting with Greg, Jake, and Murray, that we agreed to Kevin and I would meet with them, along with staff, to determine next steps.
The 5 of us agreed to that?
Absolutely, it was here at the council where we made that
First time
decision.
I heard of it, it's always it's just
If and if that's true, but I do not remember that.
Yeah, we.
I
when we-
would love
when
to
we
see the
brought-
notes on that. Because I do not remember that. I don't.
I don't either,
Okay.
not at all.
So that's something that I think is important, if that's for the 5 of us to decide, and I don't remember that. Yeah, I mean, can I ask the staff if they remember that, or are we able to look at the notes for that?
Yeah, I will review that.
Thank you.
Item 11, committee updates. Was there any meetings since last?
Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Park Board
Park Board,
and then
yeah.
CVB, so October 11th was CVB, and then the Park Board was October 26th. That for mine.
And so the 25th, what went on at the park board?
Actually, an acknowledgement of us learning that shouldn't have happened. But now that we know better, thank you. It was a great information for us to learn. But they did talk about the Millstream, which we just talked about, the dog light. And then the Winterfest for January 29th. And they're just starting to gather the information for that and get that solidified better.
The last Saturday?
Yes, of
okay.
January. Oh, and then the League of Women had approached in having assistance, help from the Park Board for May 14th of 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, they're getting ahead of themselves, which
Okay.
is great.
No, that's good. Anything else go on between last 18th and then?
Well, yeah, the CDB, but that was the 11th.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I don't think so.
Mayor reports, I mean, really, there hasn't been anything, we finished police interviews, you saw that in we accepted a candidate. John and I participated in those, that's about it that's happened the last couple of weeks. Questions, comments? Yeah, Kevin?
Did the deed application go through, Nate?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Kevin. So on Friday, we did finish the application and we did send that in and we overnighted that to deed. And according to the tracking, they got that at 8 this morning. It was due at 4 o'clock today.
And did
So-
you have a purchase agreement from Corey with that application?
So we got all the documentation that we needed in order to send the application in. So part of that was a copy of a purchase agreement. So we did have that documentation, but there has been some more recent activity that did happen after we had submitted that application.
So you submitted it on Friday, and it's Monday night, so the activity happened today. Anything you can share with us?
So we submitted it Friday afternoon, and then the activity happened after, in the later afternoon. So I don't think I can disclose anything at the moment at the council level, but we are keeping tabs on the situation and if we have to adjust our application in that, we have talked with Deed on different scenarios and are fully confident if we have to either, if we were to, worst case scenario, withdraw the application, we do have that ability to do that if it rises to that occasion.
And that was told to us 2-3 weeks ago, that same narrative. And so from what I'm hearing is you submitted the application with a purchase agreement, signed, sealed, delivered, committed, executed, or whatever word you want to use. And then you say, well, no, something else developed. And I don't know, and I got a little bit more background on the story, which I'm not gonna share, but I'm just trying to, what the hell's going on?
So
Period, point blank.
So I mean, I would love to have a one-on-one conversation, with each council member. I'm not sure I can disclose everything that's happened, and I'm not in a position to get into the weeds with all of this at the council level per se. But I can definitely talk with you after or anytime to.
I can
Update you.
appreciate the
Yeah.
fact that you can't disclose.
Yeah.
But whoever you're talking to that owns that lot,
Yep.
it's an eyesore. And I'm sick of seeing that dumpster on there and that piece of building crap. So I hope it gets resolved soon.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. That's why we put it as a priority for redeveloping.
Sure.
And tried to get this grant, so, yep.
Item 13.
Move to adjourn?
Second, motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye, opposed? We are adjourned.
What? So the whole scenario is bullshit. We were left to the point of where, okay, that grant couldn't be submitted until there was a proof of ownership, basically.